Battle Report. The epic clash of giants and heroes. Turn 1. Rosin, a shadow in the chaos, charges forward, swiftly knocking an arrow to his short bow. With expert precision, he lets loose, the arrow piercing an orc's chest, sending the beast crashing to the ground lifeless. Creek steps into the fray, casting a shimmering shield of mage armor around himself, preparing for the oncoming onslaught. Urgala Meltimer, determined, raises her shortbow and fires at the towering Orog, but the arrow sails harmlessly past its hulking form. Dars Helgar sprints towards the heart of the battlefield, while Narth, Tezrin and Dernick follow closely, charging into the fray, their weapons glinting in the dim light. Darathra Shendrel, with sword at the ready, dashes forward to join them. Othovir calls upon the arcane, launching a fiery bolt that strikes an orc square in the chest, igniting its flesh with searing flames. Geldrin Foehammer, battle-axe raised high, charges into the fray, hurling curses in Dwarvish at the enemy, eager to spill blood. Gobathalosa moves forward, encasing themselves in magical armor, eyes locked on the approaching threat. Suddenly, the ground shakes as a fire giant steps into view, its booming voice echoing across the battlefield. With a mighty heave, it hurls a massive boulder directly at Geldrin. The stone crashes into the dwarf, sending him sprawling, bloodied and battered, barely clinging to life after the devastating strike. As the dust settles, orcs, magmins and orogs surge forward, the battle truly beginning. Turn 2. Rosin surges deeper into the fray, another arrow finding its mark in an orc's chest. Creek presses on as well, eyes glowing with arcane energy. Urgala closes the gap and for the second time looses an arrow at the Orog. Fate denies her once again, the shot going wide. Dars Helgar dashes towards the heart of the enemy, ready to strike, while Dernick shapeshifts into a colossal giant toad, a formidable presence on the battlefield. Darathra Shendrel rushes into the maelstrom of combat as Othovir retreats into cover. With a mighty roar, Geldrin Foehammer cleaves an orc in two with his battle-axe, the brutal strike a testament to his rage. Gobathalosa fires an eldritch blast at the Orog, striking it with devastating precision, and then vanishes into the field to hide once more. The fire giant, with booming voice, orders his forces to retrieve the item, launching another boulder at Dernick, but the giant's aim falters. An Olog throws a javelin at Gobba, landing a hit, but the magical talisman around Gobba retaliates fiercely. The fire giant hurls another boulder, this time at Urgala, but fortune smiles upon her as the attack misses by inches. The orcs, magmins and orogs push ever closer, tightening their grip on the battlefield. Turn 3. Rosin slips into the shadows of a nearby tree, blending into the darkness. From stealth, he looses an arrow with deadly accuracy, striking an orc and annihilating it with a single lethal shot. Creek calls upon the chaotic forces once more, summoning Scorching Ray and unleashing 3 fiery bolts at the Orog. Only one beam finds its mark, scorching the creature but leaving it standing, its rage growing. Urgala Meltimer, undeterred by her past misses, steps closer and draws her bow again, sending an arrow hurtling toward the Orog. But fate remains against her as the arrow misses its mark yet again. Dars Helgar moves tactically, hiding behind a building corner and launching a sling stone at an orc. His aim is true, and the stone strikes its target. In his formidable giant toad form, Dernick lunges at an Orog with his massive jaws but misses, the Orog deftly dodging the amphibious bite. Darathra Shendrel sprints towards the thick of the battle, her great sword gleaming in the heat of combat, determined to close the gap. Othavir, seeing the battle intensify, dashes toward his allies, ready to assist. Geldrin Foehammer, still roaring in his dwarvish tongue, swings his battle-axe at an orc. His first strike misses, but the second swing cleaves through the orc's torso, killing it in a brutal flash of steel and fury. Gobathalosa steps forward, eyes narrowing as they summon the power of an eldritch blast. The crackling energy slams into the Orog with a critical strike, knocking the massive creature back, but it refuses to fall. The Orog staggers, bloodied and enraged, but still standing, its eyes burning with a mixture of pain and vengeance. The fire giant, sensing the tide of battle, lumbers forward and hurls another boulder towards Darathra, but the attack misses, crashing into the earth with a deafening thud. An orc, seizing the opportunity, swings its great axe and strikes Geldrin with a brutal blow, sending the dwarf crashing to the ground, blood pouring from his wounds as he falls unconscious. The fire giant presses forward, the ground quaking under its immense weight as orcs, magmins and orogs continue their relentless advance. Turn 4. Rozon vanishes into the trees, aiming his shortbow with deadly precision at the fire giant, unleashing a devastating sneak attack. Creek, summoning chaotic forces once more, unleashes Scorching Ray at the Orog. 2 beams strike true, but a surge of wild magic crackles through the battlefield, lightning sparking harmlessly around Creek. The Orog retaliates, dealing heavy blows to Dernick's giant toad form with his great axe. Urgala looses another arrow, but once again her aim betrays her. Dernick begins to retreat as the tide of battle turns. Orogs, seeing their chance, lash out at the massive amphibian with opportunity attacks. One of the Orogs strikes hard, its great axe biting into Dernick's thick hide. The giant toad recoils from the hit, but continues his retreat, leaping back with his massive legs as he absorbs another heavy blow from a second Orog. Despite the damage, Dernick holds his form, his resolve as strong as ever, retreating with each slow, mighty hop towards safety, all while fending off the Orog's savage attacks. The fire giant bellows a battle cry as he marches towards the party, and, though Urgala strikes out with a morning star, the giant shrugs it off and presses on. Turn 5. Rozon dashes toward a cluster of intact houses, finding cover behind their sturdy walls. From his concealed position, he swiftly draws his shortbow and fires at an Orog, but his arrow flies wide, missing the mark. Creek, once again embracing the chaotic forces at his command, summons Scorching Ray and targets 3 separate Orogs. Only one ray connects, scorching its target. Suddenly, another wild surge of magic crackles around him, conjuring a spectral shield that hovers protectively in the air. Panicked by the unpredictable magic, Creek lets out a shriek and races away from the heat of the battle. An enraged Orog retaliates with its great axe, striking Dernick in his giant toad form. The powerful blow hits with devastating force, knocking Dernick out of his toad form mid-retreat. Undeterred, Dernick immediately transforms into his direwolf form, shaking off the attack. Hearing Creek's cries, he charges to his companion's aid, grabbing the frightened sorcerer in his jaws and tossing him onto his back. Urgala Meltimer, relentless in her pursuit of the fire giant, charges forward with her morning star held high. She strikes twice, with one blow finding its mark. Her Giant Slayer ability deals additional damage to the hulking foe, though the giant remains undeterred. Dars Helgar, from behind the safety of the houses, peeks out and launches a sling stone at an Orog. His shot misses, and Dars quickly retreats to the safety of the buildings, keeping his distance from the escalating chaos. Narth Tesrin, armed with his hand crossbow, carefully aims at an Orog, but misses his shot, the bolt disappearing into the battlefield. Meanwhile, Darathra Shendril presses forward, ignoring the calls to retreat. She swings her greatsword at an Orog, but misses both times, her frustration mounting as the battle rages around her. Gobathalosa conjures a dark shadow spawn, positioning it directly in the path of the Orogs. The shadowy figure lets out a horrifying scream, terrifying 2 Orogs and sending them fleeing from the battlefield. As one of the terrified Orogs passes Darathra, she seizes the opportunity and strikes with her great sword. Her blow lands critically, sending a shower of blood into the air, but the Orog, though grievously wounded, staggers onward, still clinging to life. The other fleeing Orog is struck by the shadow spawn as it attempts to flee from the dark creature, taking a deep, slashing wound from the spectral entity. The fire giant, now roaring with fury, strides toward Darathra, swinging its massive greatsword, but missing as she dodges the blow with quick reflexes. The fire giant, still fixed on its objective, strides past Urgala. Seizing the moment, she strikes with her morning star, landing a hit, but it only slightly slows the giant's relentless march. The rest of the enemy forces continue to push forward, tightening the noose as they close in on the party. Turn 6. Rosin, ever the deadly shadow, looses another precise arrow from his short bow, this time striking the fire giant with a devastating sneak attack. The arrow finds a weak point in the giant's armor, but the behemoth remains unfazed as Rosin swiftly takes cover behind the nearby houses. Creek, summoning his chaotic power once again, casts Chaos Bolt at an Orog. The bolt connects, sending a splash of acid sizzling against the enemy. However, the unpredictable forces of wild magic surge once more, and, in a blink, Creek is transformed into a helpless potted plant. Tumbling from Dernick's back, the plant falls through the air. With lightning-fast reflexes, Dernick catches the plant gently in his direwolf jaws, ensuring Creek's safety even in this strange new form. An enraged Orog charges toward the shadow spawn summoned by Gobathalosa, unleashing 2 brutal strikes with its great axe. The blows land heavily, but the shadowy creature endures, standing its ground in the face of the assault. Urgala Meltimer, unwavering, rushes after the fire giant, determined to bring the colossal foe down. She swings her morning star twice, but her strikes miss, clanging against the giant's armor as it presses forward. Dars Helgar, hiding behind the safety of the houses, attempts to land another shot at the fire giant with his sling. However, his aim falters once again, and the stone misses. Realizing the imminent danger, Dars retreats further behind the buildings. Narth Tesrin, taking aim with his hand crossbow, fires at the fire giant, but the shot goes wide, missing its towering target. Dernick, still in his direwolf form and now carrying the potted Creek, dashes between the houses, keeping them both safely out of the fray. Darathra Shendril charges toward an Orog near the houses, swinging her greatsword in a powerful arc. Her first strike misses, but the second strike lands with deadly precision, cutting the Orog down where it stands. Gobathalosa releases 2 crackling eldritch blasts towards the fire giant. One blast connects, striking the giant squarely in the chest. Meanwhile, the shadow spawn lunges at an Orog, dealing another powerful blow to its foe. The fire giant, now filled with wrath, roars and strides toward the shadow spawn. With a thunderous swing of its enormous great sword, the giant strikes the spectral entity. The first hit lands with devastating force, followed by a second, crushing blow. The shadow spawn cannot withstand the onslaught and vanishes into the ether, its form dissolving as the giant's attacks utterly destroy it. The second fire giant, focused on its objective, swings its great sword at Urgala. The hit is devastating, but Urgala remains on her feet, defiant in the face of the massive blow. The giant dismisses her with a booming shout, "Be gone, weakling!" before continuing forward. Seizing the opportunity, Urgala strikes back with a quick, determined blow from her morning star, hitting the giant as it moves away. The glowing Magmins continue their advance, nearing the heart of the battle, their fiery forms radiating heat and destruction. Turn 7. Rozon, ever vigilant and lurking within the shadows, moves quietly between the buildings. He carefully lines up another shot from his shortbow, this time targeting an Orog. He looses the arrow, but despite his skill, it goes wide, missing the Orog by mere inches. Frustrated but undeterred, Rozon quickly melts back into the cover of the buildings, vanishing like a ghost into the thick of battle. Creek, having returned to his normal form after his bizarre transformation into a potted plant, shakes off the lingering effects of the wild magic surge. With a slight panic in his eyes, he scrambles back onto Dernick's direwolf back, clutching his spell components tightly. As the battle swirls around him, Creek shouts to his comrades, "We need to get away from here, it's too dangerous!" His voice is a mix of fear and urgency, his chaotic powers making him more aware of the unpredictable nature of the battlefield. Urgala Meltimer, despite her earlier misses, refuses to give up. She charges after the fire giant with a determined battle cry, swinging her morning star with all her might. Her first strike goes wide, missing the giant entirely, but in her overcommitment to the second swing, she critically miscalculates, stumbling as her morning star bounces off the ground, missing the giant by a significant margin. Frustration flashes across her face, but she remains resolute, unwilling to retreat. Dars Helgar, ever the opportunist, peeks around the corner of one of the houses, slinging another stone towards the Orog. His shot, however, misses once again, the Orog evading his attacks with surprising agility. Frustrated, Dars dashes back to a safer position, determined to strike again at the right moment. Narth Tezrin, aiming to support his allies, raises his hand crossbow once more and targets an Orog. His aim falters, however, as the bolt misses its intended target, flying past the hulking creature without finding purchase. Narth curses under his breath, knowing each missed shot brings the enemies closer to overwhelming them. Dernick, still in his direwolf form, and with Creek now safely perched on his back, continues to dash between the houses, moving swiftly to avoid the advancing forces. His senses are sharp, and, with Creek safely in tow, he maneuvers through the battlefield, searching for an opportunity to strike while avoiding the deadly reach of the giants and their monstrous allies. Darethra Shendril, ever the fearless warrior, stands her ground amidst the chaos. She faces down a charging orc with unwavering determination. Her first swing of the greatsword narrowly misses as the orc sidesteps her strike, but her second blow is a master stroke, catching the orc with a critical hit. The blade cleaves through the orc with brutal efficiency, sending the enemy crashing to the ground lifeless. A nearby Magmin, now close enough to engage, lunges at Darethra. Its small, fiery form hisses with dangerous heat as it swings its molten claws at her, but Darethra expertly sidesteps the attack, the Magmin's burning fingers just missing her armor. Gobathalosa, seeing the fire giant as a continued threat, calls upon dark powers to cast Hold Person on the massive creature. The magic surges forward, and to the party's amazement, the spell takes hold. The fire giant's muscles seize up, its body locked in place as it struggles helplessly against the magical paralysis. Gobba quickly retreats behind a nearby house, attempting to hide once more, but, in the chaos of the battlefield, stumbles and fails to remain unseen. The paralyzed fire giant remains frozen, unable to break free of the arcane bonds holding it in place. Its eyes blaze with fury, its entire body trembling as it fights against the spell. But it cannot move. The second fire giant, continuing its relentless pursuit of its objective, marches forward with massive strides. Undeterred by the retreating heroes, it hurls a massive boulder towards Gobathalosa. The stone soars through the air, but crashes into one of the houses in its path, shattering wooden beams and stone, sending debris scattering everywhere, but sparing Gobba from certain doom. The remaining Magmins continue to close in, their glowing bodies emitting waves of heat that scorch the air around them as they prepare to unleash fiery destruction on the party. Turn 8. Rosin, ever the opportunist, remains hidden within the shadows of the buildings. Spotting a Magmin advancing too close to his allies, he draws his shortbow and releases a deadly shot. The arrow pierces the Magmin's molten core, and with a screech, the creature erupts into a fiery explosion. Rosin, expertly positioned, avoids the explosion's fiery blast and fades back into the shadows, unseen and ready to strike again. Creek, still riding atop Dernick's back, calls upon the chaotic magic swirling within him. He casts Twinned Chaos Bolt, sending 2 streaks of arcane energy toward the approaching Magmins. The first bolt crackles with cold energy, slamming into one Magmin and weakening its fiery glow, though the creature still stands. The second bolt transforms into thunderous force as it strikes another Magmin, detonating it in an explosive burst of molten rock. Creek grins for a moment, but the familiar pull of wild magic surges again. Suddenly, a brilliant flash of radiant light bursts from Creek, blinding Dernick and Darathra, but leaving the rest of the battlefield unaffected. The direwolf and the warrior shield their eyes as their vision goes momentarily white, struggling to regain their focus. Simultaneously, another surge cloaks Creek in a protective aura, warding him from death for the next hour. Startled by the chaotic burst, Creek lets out a yelp, gripping Dernick's fur tightly as he feels the raw, untamed magic flow through him. Urgala Meltheimer seizes the opportunity to strike at the paralyzed fire giant. With a determined battle cry, she charges forward, swinging her morning star with all her might. But despite the giant being frozen in place, her first blow glances off its thick armor. Growling in frustration, she winds up for a second strike, but her aim is off, and the weapon clangs harmlessly against the giant's leg. Urgla grits her teeth, knowing she has wasted a rare opportunity to damage the behemoth while it remains paralyzed. Dars Helgar, always mindful of danger, slips through the alleyways between the buildings. Knowing full well the destructive power of the giants, he keeps his distance, moving quickly and quietly to a safer position, waiting for his chance to strike again from the shadows. Nath Tezrin raises his hand crossbow and takes careful aim at a remaining Magmin. However, his bolt flies wide, missing the creature entirely. He curses under his breath, but stays alert, determined not to miss his next shot as the enemies close in. Dernick temporarily blinded by the radiant flash from Creek's surge, growls in frustration. His direwolf senses strained. He snaps his jaws at a nearby magmin, but the blinding light affects his aim, and his teeth close on empty air. Though he misses, he stands his ground, staying close to Creek and remaining a protective force on the battlefield. Darathra Shendrel, also blinded by Creek's chaotic magic, charges forward to engage a nearby magmin. But the flash of light throws her off balance, and her first swing with her greatsword misses entirely, slicing through empty air. Growling in frustration, she swings again, but the blinding light continues to affect her, and her second strike also misses, leaving the magmin unharmed. One of the remaining magmins seizes this moment of weakness and lunges at Darathra, swinging its molten claws. However, the creature, disoriented by the chaos, misses its mark as well, leaving itself open to a counterattack. Gobberthalosa, sensing that the paralyzed fire giant is vulnerable, takes full advantage of the situation. They summon dark energy and unleash two powerful eldritch blasts. The first blast hits the giant squarely in the chest, causing it to shudder under the force of the magic, though it remains frozen in place. The second blast, however, misses its target, fizzling out into the air. Gobber quickly retreats behind a nearby house, attempting to hide, but stumbles over some rubble, failing to fully conceal themselves from the enemy's view. The paralyzed fire giant, locked in place by Gobber's hold person spell, strains mightily to break free. Its muscles bulge as it roars in frustration, but the magical bonds hold firm, preventing the giant from moving an inch. Its rage-filled eyes burn with fury, but for now, it remains helpless. Meanwhile, the second fire giant, still intent on reaching its goal, takes a massive stride forward. Eyeing Gobber, it hefts another enormous boulder and hurls it with deadly precision. The rock crashes into a nearby house, splintering wood and sending debris flying. Gobber narrowly avoids being crushed, dodging the debris just in time. The remaining magmins, now fewer but no less dangerous, continue to advance on the party. Their molten bodies pulse with fiery energy, eager to unleash another wave of destruction upon the heroes.